We are really living in unprecedented times right now when it comes to infrastructure delivery. We're still battling a global pandemic. We've got an inflationary market condition right now. Commodities pricing and availability is incredibly volatile, has never been higher. And we're dealing with a labor force shortage that is constrained, and it's insufficient to meet future demand for infrastructure projects in the United States. And so when you think about all of those issues, owners are really considering how best to address these in their current and future projects. They're doing exactly what you would expect them to do. They're sitting down with the private sector. They're trying to understand from their internal capacity as a public agency, as well as with regards to their relations with the private side, what they can be doing to appropriately manage and mitigate these risks. And so if you're looking at an existing contract, obviously these options are a little bit more constrained because you already have an established risk allocation between the owner and the contractor. However, even in those environments, we're still seeing owners have a willingness to kind of look at these very unique and historic risk issues that are propping up over the last few years to try to understand the best way to allocate these risks and to deal with these risks in a way that makes sense. At the outset, you want to actually identify an appropriate risk allocation. Because if you do not allocate risk in the way that is efficient between the owner and the contractor, then what you're going to have is an exorbitant contingency that the contractor is going to carry to try to address some of these risk allocations that are inefficiently placed. One tool that owners have used repeatedly over the years, especially if there's a particular risk that's maybe unquantifiable, if there's a particular type of hazardous material that's present in a work site, but the actual quantity of that hazardous material is unknown, you know that the contractor is going to be responsible for remediating that. You just don't know exactly the volume that is going to be, that's going to be present. One of the things that owners have done is add an allowance above and beyond the actual fixed price that's on a unit price basis. So what would happen is contractor comes across some of this hazardous material, they know that they have to remediate it, they notify the owner, and then they keep detailed records of the volume that they are actually remediating. And then that would be separately reimbursed in addition to their typical contract price at the unit price basis specified in the contract. And that's just an example of one of the things that owners are doing to try to manage risk in a way that's efficient, but also cut down on the contingency that contractors are going to have to bear to address risks that are unknown or unquantifiable. We absolutely do see risk-sharing regimes in contracts, and this comes up very often in a public-private partnership delivery method, especially around benchmark interest rates or credit spreads between when a proposal is submitted and the actual financial close date. And there's often a pain share and gain share regime, that's kind of what we call it, that allocates risk between the owner and the developer in a P3 environment around the type of risk that's borne by the parties, depending on the fluctuations in the credit spreads or the benchmark interest rates. The same is definitely true with regards to commodities these days. We understand that commodities pricing and availability has never been more volatile in history than it is right now. And so owners are becoming increasingly interested in identifying ways to actually mitigate this risk, because it's clear that the private sector is not solely able to bear this in a way that's efficient. And so owners are becoming more and more willing to look at risk-sharing regimes that would provide some certain escalation for specific commodities. It's typically based off of specific indices, and it is also very project-specific depending on the type of commodities that are going to be intensively used on that particular project.